I'm Joe Griffiths. I'm the head of search based from our London office, and I oversee all of our London-based clients from an SEO strategy perspective. And what we want to speak to today is really following on from what Tim was saying about engagement and engaging with the user, but really engaging with them in the entire process of their buying journey, the consumer decision-making process. And people are going to be looking for different things at different times in this process. And what I want to talk about today is, how this fits in with a content strategy and how a content strategy can deliver at each stage of this process. But before I go on to this, it's good. I won't dwell on this too much because Tim's already covered a lot of it. But in terms of where Google's going, in terms of content and search, Google want to rank brands that deliver value on multiple different levels. And if you're implementing a content strategy, it's not good enough, to selling products or producing one kind of content. You need to understand your users and what stage of the process they're at when they're going to be interacting with your site and interacting with your brand. It's not always about links. Tim did briefly mention this. SEO used to be, agency over here that was building loads and loads of links for your site, but it's all about engagement now. Whilst links are still important, and you do need them to rank because they do showcase that trust, authority and expertise is really showcased through content. This is a bit of a study from Jacob Nielsen at Use It, and he said that you have 3.8 seconds to engage with a user on your site before they basically bounce back to the search results. And in this 3.8 seconds, they're really looking for, from a search perspective, is this site or is this page really relevant to the query I put into Google? Are they answering the questions I was asking Google, and are they a trustworthy resource? If you're selling products, can they trust you with their money, basically? And if you don't, then the return to search, which, as Tim said, is a really negative signal, and we're finding more and more that these engagement signals are really coming into the algorithm, and Google trying to look at these in multiple different ways. As Tim said, dwell time is how Bing described this. But in terms of this expertise, authority and trust, these webmaster guidelines that Tim talks about, trust I think really comes from obviously a lot of the links and the backlinks that you get pointing to your site. So if you've got links in the BBC, you are a trustworthy resource. But in terms of showcasing expertise and showing that you're the authority in your specific industry, you can only really do that with a distinct content strategy, and showcasing on your site that you guys are the experts and you're the authorities in your particular niche or industry. And you can only really deliver content to the user if you really think about their intent. So customers aren't always looking to buy something. This is something, it's a big issue with a lot of e-commerce sites. They, to sell loads and loads of products, but really they're missing out on a huge target audience of people who aren't quite there yet. They're not quite at the stage where they want to buy a product. And a content strategy can really fit into a search strategy in the sense of delivering content at each stages of this process. So the process that I want to talk through today is it's a framework, and this is something that I picked up at uni. There's tons and tons of these kind of frameworks, but really it's a consumer decision making process, and it's basically the steps that people go through when they're looking up to and the run up to purchasing a product. And what I'll do is I'll run through each stage of this with a few examples of how it can potentially work and why it's really important for a content strategy to link into these. So the main benefit from doing something like this is it builds brand awareness and trust. If you're getting into the user's sort of consideration funnel a lot earlier in the chain, if you're delivering value, then when it comes to them coming back and actually deciding to purchase a product or a service, you're going to be at the forefront of their mind. And it's really, really important and crucial for a lot of brands to take advantage of this and get involved earlier on in the decision-making process. So the first stage is problem awareness, really. So this is kind of showcasing your USP and showing the user or the consumer they have a problem that can be solved with your service or your product. Traditionally, this has been the job of above-the-line advertising. A lot of the marketing spend that you do will be geared towards this, but there is things that you can do online that will really back this up. So in terms of the content that's on your site and your homepage specifically, you need to be absolutely clear what your product does, what your service is, and what your general USP is, because all that marketing spend's gone to getting people to this stage where they're looking at your website, and if you don't really say on your site what you do or what your product is or what your USP is, then they're probably going to bounce off and go somewhere else. Videos are a great way of doing this, but not on their own. So a good example we've got here is Shopify. So front and center on here, Shopify is everything you need to sell anywhere. That tells you exactly what they do, shows you what problems they solve, and there's also links above the fold, create your e-commerce website with Spotify, and a few case studies on there as well. So this is what we think is a really, really fantastic example of someone who's doing it right. In comparison to Cloudflare, I still actually don't know what they do, but if you were to find this website there's no indication what they even do on the homepage. Yeah, there's a video there, and there's probably, you know, if you look into the site, they really tell you what they do in there. But again, it's too many clicks for the user. You need to show front and center exactly what you do, or else the marketing spend you've put into getting the user to this stage is gone to waste, really. So this is probably, arguably, from a SEO and content perspective, probably the most important stage for a user. So if you think of the user, they know they've got a problem that needs solving by a service or a product. The next thing they do is they want to research, you know, behind products, behind, you know, specific services that can solve those problems, and they tend to go to Google to do this. So if we take the example of someone who's looking to buy a family car, they don't really know what the options are out there, so they jump on Google and they do a Google search to find out what's in here. And we classify these as long tail searches, so I know there's quite a few SEOs in the room and everyone will be quite aware of what this is, but for those who aren't, long tail searches make up the majority of the searches on the internet, and we classify these as searches to get less than 100 searches per month. These tend to be really informational led and sort of non-committal buyer. So if we look towards the left on here, these what they classify as fathead and chunky middle, these are keywords that get a lot of search volume. So these could be something like car insurance, buy used Ford Focus, keywords like that. So these are keywords where the users, you know, pretty much already made up their mind as to what they want to buy and what they want to do. So in terms of this long tail section down here, the user doesn't quite know what they want to do yet. So if you can get your brand in front of these people at this earlier stage, you'll stand a much better chance of actually selling to them later on down the line. And just to back up how many searches these are, Google say 15% of all monthly searches are searches they've never actually seen before. Top line benefits of this, mainly you acquire new customers through ranking for these queries, so you get a lot of search traffic to the site. But more importantly, you actually engage with these customers when they're actually coming to your site, because they're actually relevant people who might actually buy your product later on down the line. And it doesn't also benefit people you get through search, also benefits the people who are already on your site. A few tips in terms of assessing the demand in terms of what your target audience is looking for. Analytics, if you've got an internal site search function on your website, you can get a report or an export from analytics which tells you all the keywords people are looking for in terms of content on your site. So whenever we take on a client, whenever we're starting a content strategy, we look at what people are already searching the site for, because if you aren't serving those queries within the people who are already on your site, you won't be serving those queries through search either. So there's a lot of opportunities to come from looking at these keywords and what people are searching for within your own website. Q&A sites, forums and social media, these are really fantastic resources to see what the users are looking for online, what your target audience's problems are, because if someone's having to ask a question on a Q&A site, on a forum or social media, they probably haven't found the answer already by looking in Google. So we know that there's demand for this, these kind of queries being answered, but we also know there isn't a lot of competition for those as well, because no one's answering those queries for the user. So thinking of the user now, they know what problem they've got, they know a lot of information about what they're looking for, and now it comes to, you know, evaluating brands against other, or evaluating certain products against other products. And this is really important in terms of brands and people who sell brands. So you could be an e-commerce site, or you could be the brand itself. So in terms of the car example, where do you have to compare brands? You probably jump on Google to see, you know, if there's any kind of comparison there. So example here, Renault or Peugeot or Vauxhall. What does this look like? What does the comparison landscape look like? Because if you've got a product that's really high involvement, you know, it's going to be a big investment for the user. They're going to be looking for these kind of queries, and they're looking for this kind of content that really guides them down that path to influence their decision making. So if you're a brand, if you are Renault, if you are Vauxhall, then you're going to want to rank a favourable comparison there as well, or guide people to really review your offering of your cars better than everyone else in some facet online. Or alternatively, you could be a car dealer, and you could be there's an opportunity there for you to get in front of these consumers by helping them along the way. So if I was a car dealer, say the likes of Auto Trader, I'd probably make this comparison tool and put that on my site as it is, because that does help the user and it guides them down that path, and it's a really good opportunity to get in front of those guys. The review landscape, one of the first things we do for a client when they come on board is do a brand plus review search. So in the example here, we've used Thompson, and there's a few negative reviews on that first page in the top 3 results. If you're selling a really expensive product, to a consumer, if it's really, really high involvement, they're going to be searching for these kind of queries before they part with, a holiday which is the best part of £4,000. This really needs to be controlled by the brand if possible, and there is ways of doing that. Just a note on that, fake reviews are illegal, and Google does come down hard on it, and it's something you should really, really avoid. But you can funnel people into leaving you good reviews by setting up an internal review process. So if you ask people to come to you directly to give you reviews, you can then cherry pick the people who have given you favourable reviews internally and then send them off to the likes of Trustpilot or Review Centre. This is really the only way you can kind of control the amount of good visitors you get. Obviously, you should aim to give a good product and give it an experience anyway, but if you don't have a good product, then that's what we suggest doing. The brand search landscape, we actually had a client go on board a while back who had an unfavourable review, ranking number 2 for their own brand name. And it can have a really serious impact on sales and on revenue. So this is an example from the BBC, and this is a court case in France where a restaurant actually sued a blogger because when you typed in the restaurant's name, really, really terrible reviews appearing in second place in the search results. And this had such a negative impact on the restaurant that they took the blogger to court. The court sided on the favour of the restaurant, and the blogger had to take it down and also pay a fine to the restaurant themselves. So really, really important to check what's actually ranking in that brand landscape, and if you can, just try and pack it through full of good reviews, social profiles, and any positive articles that are around about your brand. Purchase stage. So we've got the customer exactly where we want them. We've done everything right in the previous few stages, and now they're here and they want to buy a product from us. So it sounds really easy. It's we've got them there, they want to buy, but there is a lot of pitfalls, and it's really, really saddening to see when you spend all this marketing budget to get a consumer to a certain point, and then once they get there, they're jumping off because either your checkout process is too long, there's a lot of stumbling blocks. It's a real waste of all that spend that you've put in to that one point. So the idea is just to make this as painless as humanly possible, and it's really only possible by A/B testing. There's a lot of studies around checkout processes and things like that, but really you need to test exactly what your users are looking for that checkout process, and then basically go with whatever that says. And also litter that entire process with trust signals. People are still quite dubious about buying online, especially for really, really expensive products, and they're looking for things like MasterCard SCUR code and verified by Visa. If you don't have these, then that increases the chance that they're going to jump off of your site and think, do you know what, these guys are maybe not the sort of people I want to part my money with, or not the sort of people I want to enter some kind of transactional relationship with. So it seems like a really, really easy, obvious thing to do, but a lot of people forget to do this or don't really pay as much attention to it, and it has a real impact on your conversions and revenue. Once someone's purchased, the journey isn't over. There's an opportunity to further engage with these people once they've bought a product from you. This is really, really important. It's something people often forget when they look at content as well, because we all know it's 5 times more expensive to gain a new customer as opposed to keeping the existing one. And I think retention somehow wasn't really applied online in terms of content strategy, but there's a huge, huge opportunity for post-purchase content. So if you're selling some sort of a holiday, or you're selling a really, really complicated product, guides, FAQs, and usage guides potentially. If you're selling a holiday and you're selling someone to Florida, what do they need before they go there? What things can they do when they're there? Have you got any itineraries you can maybe send them through? It's just an opportunity to engage with a customer after they've already bought from you, because once they come to book a holiday the next year, or once they come to buy a product again, you're going to be very, very favourable, and they have a much, much better experience of buying a product from you. And an offset of that is reviews. So we spoke earlier about reviews, and this can have a decent impact on your search performance, because if you get good reviews through Trustpilot, you can then feed them through into the search results, which have a fairly decent impact on click-through rate as well. So just to summarise really, the framework that's set in here is very much a framework. We've worked with a couple of clients now where we've actually sat down, looked at their target audience, even different segments, and come up with different processes for each segment and each target audience. And once you start to put this out, once you think, oh yeah, there's a really big 6-month research phase there, the content opportunities and the strategy kind of develops itself. But you really need to develop this around the users themselves, and you can only really do that by getting into the mindset of those customers. And basically cater your content experience through their mindset, because you know they're not always at the purchase phase, they're not always at the information search phase, but they're going to be at some point along that journey at a lot of different times. So it's a really fantastic opportunity to acquire new customers, but also to engage the ones that are already there. I am about afterwards, as Tim said. Come over and chat to me if there's anything you want to expand on. I know it's only 20 minutes, it's quite hard to fit a lot of detail in there. Follow me on Twitter, and yeah, thank you.